I feel really dumb about what I'm about to tell you, but I'm already putting all this on the internet, so I might as well. My first thought when this movie ended was I would totally watch like a sequel. I want to know what happens. I'm interested to see where this goes. And then I remembered that this is just from Dracula, and so where it goes is is Dracula. Hi, I'm John Bonjour. I'm an artist and a film enthusiast, and I just saw Last Voyage of the Demeter like literally 20 minutes ago, and I want to talk about it. Overall thoughts, just to start this thing off, I think this movie's good. I don't think it's spectacular, but I think it's really solid. So if you just stop there, know that. I think it's good. It's a good monster movie. Let's dig into the good first. The sound design in this movie is so solid that I couldn't get over it. The little constant waves and creaks and shifting of the boat and all that, and then you get into the monster sound design and the flapping of the wings and all that. It all just comes together to create this really great atmosphere that I feel like nothing else could have really created with that. Like, you can show me as much rain as you want, and trust me, this movie really does. This is one of the wettest movies I've ever seen. That doesn't feel right. Anyway, the whole setting of being stuck on this ship really gets sold, I think, by the sound design. I don't think the score really brings all that much to it, but it doesn't detract. It's fine. But the Foley work and the audio leveling and all of that just really comes together. I think on pretty much every technical level, this movie is really good. Visually, it looks gorgeous. Like I said, it's very rainy, which, again, atmosphere. It's shot really well. The camera moves around in interesting ways, kind of ways that you wouldn't expect it to. Ways that keep you engaged even in the slower parts of the movie, the parts that might not normally kind of have your attention. Even the CGI work, that was kind of a thing I was worried about. Just knowing any monster movie, you're kind of going to run into probably a lot of CGI work. And I will grant them this, as much of this as could be done practical seems like it was, which is huge. But people don't have wings, and so you can't fly around like a big winged Batman. So there's gonna be some stuff that's CGI. There just is. There has to be with this kind of movie. And I think this pulls it off really well. Anything that is CGI is usually kind of covered by smoke or fog or rain or darkness, so it's not super obvious when it is. And even then, when you can tell that it is, it still looks really solid. The actors really bring a lot to these roles. They're not given a whole ton to do thematically. There's not a lot of meat to a lot of these characters. It's just like kind of a guy who's been hit by the world, and a kid who doesn't quite know what's going on, and a captain who's sort of running out of time, I guess. It's all just kind of vague character work where it got to the point where I could not keep track of exactly who had died and who hadn't, because it was like your 3 or 4 main characters and then just a series of other bearded men in jackets who some of them died and some of them hadn't died at the time, and I was like, you're one of them. You are for sure one of the bearded men. I just don't know. Like those, I think there's 4 or 5 of the other guys, completely interchangeable in my mind. They gave them literally no character outside of one of them is Irish. Great. If he's not talking, I don't know who that is. The most important thing, though, about this movie, because you're here for Dracula, right? Like, you're here to see big monster take out a bunch of guys. So does it deliver? As far as I'm concerned, yes. I think this is not the strongest Dracula I've ever seen, not in terms of physical power, but just like the development of this Dracula is a little bit convoluted, and I would say it kind of conflicts with itself just a little bit. Some people seem to believe one thing about it, and some people seem to believe the other. It's not totally clear. Is it an animal? Is it a guy? It smiles and talks, so you kind of think guy, but then it also is like doing some stuff where you're like, that doesn't seem like something a guy would do. So it's more just whatever the movie needs it to be. So once you kind of get past that, I totally think it works. All of the kills in this movie are spectacular. This movie's way harsher than I was expecting it to be. Like, you kind of think, oh, okay, yeah, it's like a Dracula sort of thing, so it's gonna be a lot of tasteful, dramatic shots, and then somebody's gonna get bit on the neck, and it's sort of oh no, some blood trickling down, Nah, man, like there's chunks missing. There's big chunks just gone. Also, some spoilers, I guess. A kid dies. They are obliterated. A lot of times these kinds of movies will have the kid be the one thing, that is going to be safe. The one thing you got to keep protected because it's a kid. What are we going to have the giant monster come up behind a kid and just tear a chunk out of it? Yeah. Yeah, for a Dracula movie, the Dracula works really well. It's exciting, it delivers on everything you kind of want it to, in that it is Dracula on a boat taking people out. But not everything about this movie works. The most notable thing to me is the pacing. It's a little bit rough. You get these kind of things. I think a great example of it would be like The Conjuring, where daytime you're safe, nighttime you're not. Those are your general rules. Sometimes they play with that, but that's kind of how it works, right? So when it's daytime, you get some character development. Nighttime, you feel that just intense dread in your heart, you know? This kind of tried to do that, but it just didn't quite, I feel like, know how to balance the daytime, nighttime thing. So it doesn't play with those rules at all. It just goes daytime safe, nighttime not safe. So when you get to the daytime, as invested as I was in these characters, and I really was, you start to see where they kind of fall short of being fleshed out characters. Kind of our whole main character is Doctor, who is black and has been kept back from career opportunities because of his race. His motivation for trying to understand the world is interesting. I like that. The thing is, that's all they really give him. Like, he's a doctor, so you assume with that comes the need to save people, and he's been held back by society, and you assume with that comes the need to fight back. Which would be completely fine if he wasn't the only guy who gets any development in this movie. Like, even the captain, okay, he loses his son in the most grisly way possible. He watches it happen, and he's sad, and then he's sad, and then he dies. And that's all we get from him. I just wish for a movie that focused so much on living with these characters that we kind of knew these people better. I wish that they had given us some more to latch onto for these characters, something to kind of invest us in them. So when they start dying, you'd be like, not Kevin, instead of just like, not a guy. Oh, the Dracula killed a guy. I hate when that happens, don't you? Ah, shoot. One more thing that doesn't totally work for me is there's just not a clarity. I understand that they were probably going for a question mark in terms of is Dracula supposed to be monster or man? I understand that that's supposed to be a little blur. I'm fine with that. I have no problem with that. Actually, I really like the way they did this. And then spoilers, right at the end when he's got his little hat on, goofy as hell. But I thought it was fun. Like, it worked for me. Like, it felt like not an answer to that question, but a little kind of layer added on to the question. The thing that doesn't work for me is there are no rules at all. I'm not saying they should have the full understanding of the Dracula weaknesses, you know, like, but there's some times where this just like actively goes against what we kind of consider to be vampire lore and Dracula lore. There's a lot of kind of questions that they leave you on, and that could be a good thing, but it also kind of takes away, you know, by the time you get to the final confrontation, I really had no feeling that they were gonna kill Dracula. Like, even with other movies where you know exactly what's gonna happen, take Titanic, there's always a part about 2/3 of the way through that movie where you're like, maybe they're gonna make it out of this one this time. Maybe this time around they're gonna be fine. I wasn't able to fully buy into this movie to the point that I ever thought they might kill Dracula. It just didn't bring anything story-wise that really surprised me on any level. Anyway, Last Voyage of the Demeter. Overall, I think this movie's really good. I think it's definitely not the best movie of the year by any means. It's not the best horror movie of the year. It's not even the best monster movie of the year, probably. But it's fun. And it's definitely worth checking out. I feel like this is when you kind of have to go, okay, movie, I'm gonna let you be whatever you are and then see if I end up liking that, instead of going, I want this to be bloody and badass and funny, because it is some of those things. Thank you for watching my video. If you'd like to hear more of my thoughts on movies, shows, comics, what I think of the current US government system, just sound off in the comments, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the little bell, or do none of those because I am not your dad.